Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Taking the Lead. I'm your host, Ken Jacobs. And as you know, this is the place where we get to interview PR and communications leaders, but we don't really talk much about PR or communications. We talk about something, to me, a lot more exciting and fulfilling, and that's the notion of leading ourselves, leading our teams, leading our peers, leading our clients. And we've interviewed friends, we've interviewed acquaintances, and today we get to interview someone I've admired as a leader for a long time. His name is Jonathan Rosen. Many of you know him. He's the principal at BerlinRosen Holdings, and that includes BerlinRosen, Glen Echo Group, Darris, very recently Inkhouse PR, M18, and Onward. So Jonathan Rosen, welcome to Taking the Lead.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Good to have you here. So you started BerlinRosen as a two-person startup, age 26, 2 years after getting your JD from the NYU School of Law. What were you thinking?
We weren't thinking. We were thinking we would pay our rent for some time. Our business plan was we were really good at dealing with the New York City tabloids, working in New York City politics. This was in the pre-digital era of media. This was kind of still in the pinnacle of sort of the legacy media. This is a year before Facebook was invented. And we had the thought that we could get out of politics and find people not in politics to pay us to talk to the New York City media. And in our second or third meeting, someone said, "So you're starting a PR firm?" And we looked at each other and said, "Yeah, I guess." And that's how we ended up here.
So as a parent, I have to ask, what were your parents' reactions when, wait, you just went through we put you through law school, or you just went through law school, and now you're starting what? What did the parents
My
say?
parents were incredibly supportive, and they've always been, to their immense credit. Actually, my father-in-law, who I love dearly, and I'm very close to, my wife's father, I remember distinctly telling him I was not taking the bar exam for a year because I was going to give this a go, and that if it didn't work out, I would go back and be a lawyer. And he raised his eyebrow and gave me such a look, and we still joke about it to this day. But look, I think for leaders, there's a lot in. Sometimes you have to just try something, put it on the line, and see where it goes. It was a measured risk, right? We weren't, laying out a bunch. It was just the two of us, and I didn't have kids yet, and I really had to somewhat equal my salary in politics, which was pretty low, and pay rent.
Set the bar low, right?
Yeah, and pay rent in New York City 20 years ago, which was lower. And that was that we set out with that goal. And I think Jim Weiss, who's a leader I admire a lot, at Real Chemistry, talks about that our work is really simple. All of our work in communications, it's good people, good clients, good work. Like what we do is relatively simple. It's helping our clients tell their stories. And when we started, it was, I think we were very content for just the two of us to work with people we liked and respected and help tell their stories, and kind of everything flowed from there.
If it were always so easy. If it were always so easy.
Didn't say it was easy.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about Valerie Berlin, especially how you complement one another as leaders of people, and especially how do you manage when the two of you disagree?
Sure. So Valerie and I have worked together now for 23 years, 5 years prior to the starting of the firm. She took a chance on me as a young staffer on the Mark Green for Mayor campaign in New York City in 2001.
Oh my God.
And we worked together in New York State politics. So we started the firm in 2005. We were close work colleagues and then close friends. She actually introduced me to my wife. So, I owe her a lot. I think where we're different is actually in a really complementary fashion. I think Val is extraordinarily empathetic and deliberate and thoughtful about process in a way that's super important as you're scaling and growing an organization. I think if I can be self-critical, I'm often, let's act now, we'll figure out what happens, we'll figure out how to clean it up and deal with it later. And I think I bring a intensity and speed to keep us moving forward, and she often brings very important thoughtfulness, question asking, refinement, and an incredible attention to culture and values. But I think fundamentally, I mean, it's like a marriage in a lot of ways, and that like you have to go into it knowing like no matter what, you're always going to work it out, and that like you're going to stay in the room and you're going to talk about it until you work it out. And the business has changed a million times, and we've confronted a million different issues together. We sit 4 feet away from each other at 2 desks in the same office. We've done that for the entire time we've worked together. Obviously now we could have separate offices if we wanted to. But I think we've thought that just being able to turn to the other one and have a conversation has always been like just incredibly beneficial. And, I think there's times in any partnership where you're feeling up, the other person's feeling down, you're able to handle a situation the other person isn't. And I think we're able to complement each other in those moments in really great ways. And she's someone I respect more than almost anybody, and I'm just super grateful for her partnership over the past 20 plus years now.
So I think it's really great when people want to partner, when leaders want to partner, when agency owners want to partner, to find someone with different skills, with complementary skills and different perspectives
100%.
is so important. I think that means that sometimes you will disagree. What are your rules for disagreement?
We've never really had rules other than that we're going to come to a consensus. I mean, we're 50-50 partners. We've been 50-50 partners from day one. And at the end of the day, we know whatever arguments we're having, like we have to come to an agreement and an alignment. I think there's a ton of mutual respect and affection and appreciation for each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I'm not saying it to sound Pollyanna. We've definitely had disagreements over the past 2 decades, but we've never had to. I mean, we've never once had to like take out the operating agreement and be like the policy. Like it's just been all right. Like if we can't get aligned on something, we're going to kick the can until we can, and we'll go for a long walk around Prospect Park, or we'll go have dinner and we'll sort of step out of the office and talk about why we're not aligned. But I mean, I'm fortunate that in 20 years, I can count half a dozen times that's happened. More than that, it's just the day-to-day. You get in sync with someone, you kind of know the stuff they're going to be sensitive to. I know the things that she's going to want to spend more time on. I think she knows the things that I'm going to want to spend more time on. And I think there's huge zones of operation where it's sort of free ball. I mean, there are huge parts of the business where she's empowered to make whatever decision she wants, and it's great, and vice versa. And so I think that, and that's actually helped us, and this was your question, as we've scaled and brought on more firms. I mean, you have to respect your partners. You have to bring people with you that know more than you, that have capabilities. You have to be a huge delegator. You can't be a micromanager. There's no way to scale without doing those things. And I think both of us have appreciated, like, we're playing zone, and that allows you to cover a lot more ground.
So I think that was a sports reference, but I'm not exactly sure. Okay. So BerlinRosen was recently named PR Week's Outstanding Large Agency 2023. You have been on an acquisition streak. We mentioned a number of those companies during your intro. So you're clearly not just leading individuals or teams. You are leading leaders. You are, I imagine, leading folks who are more experienced than you. You may be leading people who are in some ways more talented than you. So what's your secret sauce to lead leaders in their own right?
Sure. First is always find people who are more talented than you. That is the key to life. Look, I think when we look for agencies to partner with, we're looking for people who've built extraordinary winning cultures and high performance cultures. We're looking at leadership teams that are incredibly cohesive and have been together for a long time. Yes, we do business diligence, we understand clients, but to be honest, like spending time with teams at dinner and understanding how they interact and who they are as people is really important. And we're not selling to partners who join our holding company that we know all the answers. We're selling that this is an incredibly exciting time in communications, that we're an open-minded group of people, yes, with a vision of where media is going, but also with a belief that together there's a cohort of us who came up at around the same time as media was going through, epochal change, right? You think about from like the 1700s until 2006, media was a top-down pyramid of first newspapers and then telegraph and radio and TV. It was sort of broadcast out. And then with the rise of social and the rise of digital media, you saw, the net distribution costs go to zero, and storytelling just radically change. And we think there's a set of agencies that are extraordinary at how they've navigated that change. And so, yeah, we're looking for people who know more than we do. I'm super blessed that I have partners. Every one of them knows more than I do about a lot of things. And I think, there's things that I know more about than they do. But I think what's great about it is I love calling around to our new partners and saying, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And I'm incredibly enriched by their perspectives. And that's really like what the offer is. We are looking for partners who want to collaborate together and build something large together.
How exciting, how exciting. So speaking of leadership, who are some leaders who have inspired you that you admire, and why?
So I thought about this when you sent me this question, and I have three, and they're very different, but and none of them are probably going to be figures that your audience, maybe, we'll see. So the first one is my longtime client and now good friend, Dan Doctoroff. Dan was the founder of the New York City Olympic Committee after a very successful and young career in investment banking. He was the deputy mayor for economic development and rebuilding in New York City after 9/11, and helped rebuild the city, and has been later was the CEO of Bloomberg LP, Mike Bloomberg's sprawling media company, and then led the urban innovation platform company for Google for Sergey Brin and Larry Page Sidewalk Labs. Dan stepped back from that role last year when he announced that he has ALS, what I will say about Dan, consistent from the Olympics bid to rebuilding Lower Manhattan to building Hudson Yards to scaling Bloomberg and building out the news organization, and is he has a what I would call forceful optimism as a leader, where people feel just deeply inspired by him and also like afraid to disappoint him. He's someone who, as a client, you want to deliver excellence for, and as a person, and I think he does that by just incredible optimism, always thinking out what the opportunity is. And I think it's epitomized by how he's tackling ALS. I mean, it's my worst nightmare. I think it's most people's worst nightmare as far as diseases go. And Dan decided that he was going to spend whatever time he has left, beyond being an amazing husband, father, and now grandfather, but building an organization he'd already started called Target ALS to help massively advance research in the space. He set a goal of raising several $100 million, and through sheer force of will, the same force of will he bought to getting the World Trade Center rebuilt, he has bought to raising that money. And when you talk to him, he's just relentlessly positive. And he's a young guy, relatively speaking, and he's aware that the work he's doing for Target ALS is not gonna, but he's just showing up every day, and it inspires people in an enormous way. So that's one. Second one is a guy who PR people of a certain age will know, because I think he led Brunswick in the 80s or 90s, maybe not, maybe before it was Brunswick, I don't know. He had many lives. A guy named Jay Kriegel, who was the youngest chief of staff to John Lindsay when he was in his 20s. Then worked for the Tisches when they owned CBS. Helped build some of the first international PR firms in the US, and worked at the related companies for his life. And for Jay is the type of person where anybody, like, I have never met somebody who inspired more people to do civic good for New York. And I mean, famous people. And Jay was someone you'd call and you'd say, hey, I have this project, it's really important for the Coalition for the Homeless, or this. Can you help me get to this famous person? Of course, you call this one, you call that one. I used to believe that Jay had 4 breakfasts and 5 lunches a day, and had a gratitude and like a passion for the city. And when COVID happened, along with another PR leader I respect greatly, my very good friend Risa Heller, who's an amazing crisis communicator, we were talking one day, kind of in the depth of like April 2020, and we were like, what would Jay do? And we started a communications effort for New York City pro bono, and we got a lot of brands and clients involved in it. And that idea of like, you're more than a government, you're more than a corporate leader, like we're all civic citizens, like we're all, like we owe this place a lot. I didn't grow up in New York. I moved here when I was 20. I wanted to live in New York since I was 8 or 9 years old. I remember the first time I came here. The city gave me everything. The fact that I was able to come here, meet the people I met, have the experiences I had. And Jay just, infected that spirit. Risa, this is her story, so I won't use the name, but she was recently in LA, and she was meeting with one of the most famous CEOs in media today, a Fortune 5 CEO. And
okay, we're all thinking.
and I said, how was it? And she said, it was great. We spent the entire time talking about Jay Kriegel. And I said, really? And she said, well, yeah, because in 1987, he had this impact on it. And that's who he was. That's my second one. And my third one is actually one of my new partners at BerlinRosen. In 2020, we began a partnership with Onward, which became the first firm we partnered with when we started our holding company. Tali Germain, who led Onward, was our DEI consultant, and in a lot of ways became like a leadership coach to me, and still is. And the work she has done with our organization and how she has pushed me as a leader to show up, the way she's given feedback that's both tough, but from a place where I, as she always says, I've got you, and how she's brought a culture of just greater honesty and transparency. When we started our holding company, Val and I turned to each other and said, oh my God, the first person we've got to bring into this is Tali and Onward, because their work can be transformative, not only for us, but for our partner agencies and for all of our clients. At a time where a lot of leaders are struggling with the sprawling demands of leadership as workplace culture has expanded over the past couple of years, she's really continues to teach me how to both be direct and transparent and non-defensive. As she always says, say the thing. And for us to become a workplace culture where like we say the thing and hopefully we address the thing. And so those are my 3.
No, it's great counsel. We always talk to clients, our coaching clients, about being able to speak with anyone about anything. And you can do so if you bring in equal measure directness, diplomacy, kindness, and honesty.
Yep.
If you're in that zone, you literally can discuss anything with anyone and they'll appreciate it. So
totally.
Real quick, as we wrap up,
yes,
please be honest here. Your worst leadership faux pas, the worst leadership moment where you were not bringing it.
I mean, how much time you got? Look, I think every one of them for me has the same through line, and it's my Achilles heel, and I'll be honest about it.
Yeah.
It is very hard for me to not take leadership criticism personally, and as the organization has grown, I've gotten a lot better at this. Okay, I'm much better than I was 10 years ago. But there's this transition you go through where you know everybody and you're like a little family business, to then like you don't know everybody and people don't know you. And they're ascribing things to you and making assumptions and inferences, and it's not personal, right? And leadership is about what you're doing for them, not what they think of you. And that's a really hard lesson. It's something I have to counsel clients about all the time. But yeah, there are times where I take valid feedback too personally, and I can be snappy or not create a climate or environment that welcomes it. I think I'm radically better at that than I was even a couple of years ago. But if you had to ask me to be super honest about like the thing I work on the most is hearing pushback and feedback from all corners and reacting to it with a growth mindset, and reacting to it in a way where like it's not personal.
Yeah, and it's so worth it. I think one of the most important things leaders can do, and it is one of the toughest, is to actively seek out feedback on that leadership performance.
Totally.
And then, and to your point, not take it personally, but say, what's the opportunity here?
100%.
Leadership, well, it depends. There's all kinds of styles of leadership. I'm a big believer in the servant leader. Your
100%.
success is serving others, supporting others. You can only succeed if they succeed. And it is removing ego, and it is making that sacrifice. And so if I can serve them better as a leader, only if I get that feedback, I'm willing to put that ego on hold. And remove the ego, and it's worth it, because then I can bring my people and my organization into greatness. And isn't that
100%
what it's all about?
So, and I'd like to say 6.5 out of 7 days I execute on that, and I'm still working on the last 0.5.
Right. Just keep working it, keep working it. All right, this has brought great joy to me. I hope joy to you. Certainly. Absolutely. Joy and knowledge and inspiration to our viewers. If you want to get in touch with Jonathan Rosen, he's on LinkedIn. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to reach out to discuss leadership, you know where you can find me, KEN@JACOBSCOMM.com. And thank you again, Jonathan Rosen, for sharing your wisdom and your inspiration and your funny stories. And I'm glad you didn't become a lawyer. I think we all are.
I am also glad I didn't become a lawyer.
And even your parents are, and your father-in-law.
He is now. Glad he's acknowledged that.
As we all say, until next time, keep on taking the lead.